Hi, I'm Robert Rosenberg, here with a special edition of Public Affairs, Public Access. Tonight's special edition is called What the Blank Just Happened. With me is, I'm sorry.
You can all introduce yourselves.
What just happened?
Yeah.
That's true.
We have Stacey Davis, we have Paul Colby, we have Christian Salinas, we have Danny Sneed, and we have Jessica?
Amanda
Wolf, and Paul?
David Brannon.
Yeah. Anyway, we're here to discuss the election, the returns, what led up to the election, or the returns, and just what's going on in today's world that we get to where we are today. So we're open for calls. We would appreciate calls. We would love to have calls to know that at least one person is watching. Just as a favor, even if you don't have anything to say, pick up the phone and call. Don't text, call. All right? So anyway, I'll just open the floor and let's talk about, I guess, let's talk about that Republican primary campaign. That was a real nail biter, wasn't it?
That should take all of about what 4. So I think you just talked about it. That was it.
Oh, did it happen?
Seemingly.
Well, then I guess we have to talk about the Democratic Party primaries. Today was Super Tuesday, and it appears that Joe Biden has sort of, I don't know,
shocked the
risen
world.
from the dead, maybe?
Catapulted.
Well, let's say somebody catapulted him.
Yeah.
Well, on the way over here, I heard that, somebody on NPR asking some woman from Sanders' campaign what she has to say for herself, and that Sanders had all this money and he ran as the anti-big money campaign or candidate, and Biden had so little money, and then she didn't factor in the fact that actually behind Biden was all the big money. They just didn't write the check to him because they didn't have any confidence in him. So they wrote it to Pete Buttigieg, and they wrote it to Amy Klobuchar, and they wrote it to who else? We don't know. But anyway, there was a lot of money behind him. They raised a lot of
and
money
lately they also wrote it to Dear Elizabeth under the persist dogma, which goes to show you that even if people start out being very principled and saying, I wouldn't take a dime from a PAC, if it gets to cut and shove, well, then they might change their position, especially if they are looking to be vice president on somebody's ticket. And one should point out, just in passing, that even if it would be wonderful to have a woman in the second highest office of the land, that in fact, since it is mostly ceremonial, then any of the beautiful progressive ideas that are on board this time around aren't going to happen.
And why would it be special to have a woman?
Well,
Really?
Because they're the other gender. I've always respected them immensely because they're smarter, more sensitive, they pay attention, and they're patient with men. And we need people to be patient.
Well, now let's stop there.
But more to the point, who's voting for Biden? Who's really voting for this guy?
I have
Who
no
really
idea.
wants mushmouth, mumblemouth to be president?
Just over the last several weeks, he made up a story about how he was visiting Mandela and was arrested and not able to visit. Well, he did visit 700 miles away from the airport, where he wasn't arrested. He was just pulled aside and said, you need to go through the whites only gate, while the rest of the delegation who were black went through the black only gate. Somehow or other, that turned into he was arrested. He told the story repeatedly. He was corrected. And yet, somehow or other, he became the darling of black voters of the South. Now, how is that? When he makes up a lie about going to meet, probably the most historic black figure in world history, really, modern world history. I mean, why wasn't that an insult that they would say?
Did
Why did
anybody
he
see
lie
it on
about
the
that?
news? Was it on the news? Was it, was it out front and center? Was it in the New York Times? Was it in the
Yes,
Wall
it
Street
was in the
Journal?
New
No,
York-
it was not. Was it,
Well, how do you think I know it? From my Ouija board?
So I would like to believe that how do you find anyone that has lived as long as most of the candidates that you can't look in their history?
This is different. This is different. This is an outright lie about race. This should be an insult to the race.
To your point.
That he's lying about.
To your point, I can agree that if you even prove to me that happened, and then if it happened 20, 30 years ago, how do I bring?
No, he talked about it 3 weeks ago. At three different rallies.
So to your point, do we take that and paint his whole personality, everything he's done, and dismiss anything else he's done?
He ran twice before in the primaries, and both times he got chased out before the voting really started for lying and plagiarizing other people. He, just yesterday, he goes on and on about this wonderful relationship he has with both of his sons, Beau and Hunter. Yesterday, when he accepted the endorsement of Pete Buttigieg, he spoke of Pete in words that Biden himself said he has never done this in his life, and compared him to his son Beau, never mentioning that he has a son Hunter. Now, why do you think maybe Hunter has a long history as a drug addict, had an affair with Beau's widow, and was on the no-show work payroll for a corrupt Ukrainian country that Biden sits there, and even though people in the White House told him, Biden, your son looks like he's on the payroll of a bunch of gangsters in the Ukraine. It doesn't look good. Biden has told us over and over again that he never even knew what it was Hunter did or where he got his money. How does his son leave rehab and get a $600,000 a year job when he has no skills?
So let's say that
That really happened.
So let's say that's facts, and that actually happened.
Listen, everything I say tonight are actual facts.
So I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. So if we set those facts next to Joe Biden, who do we set next to him that someone set facts against that person and brings up something like?
Well, let's say Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren was a little bit dishonest, and that she was taking,
How do you be a little bit dishonest?
Well,
Like Biden.
if you let me finish.
So,
No,
again,
no.
I'm not trying to. What I'm saying is, it has
Kinda
to be
like
a
that.
equal comparison. It can't be like you're a little bad, you're a bad. It has to be bad is bad.
I'll tell you who
since
didn't
I feel
lie
like
is
you-
Tom Steyer.
Since I feel like you support Biden, I want to ask
That's
you.
not true. I just
Well,
like to
you seem
be
to understand the
balanced
Biden. You seem to understand the Biden voter. Do you think does the Biden voter think that Biden's going to do well with Trump in a debate?
Well, I listen to both sides of it. It's like when you put two people beside each other, and both sides can show evidence that these people have flaws in their character. It proves to me they both are human. But how do I choose which bad is worse than the other bad based on two
Well, I
people's
guess if
opinions?
you have a long
know,
history of being a liar,
One of the
like
things
Biden
that
does, then you could take it that they're a liar.
Or a history
Just like we
of
know
being
Trump is a liar.
honest?
And who can say who stands in a room and say, if it was me, or who can stand before anyone and not have a flaw that someone can dig up if you've been living for 70 or 80
Bernie
years?
You have to
Sanders.
dig up Biden.
I would say that
Not
that
all-
is what it really comes down to for those of us who are passionate about Bernie, is that he's saying the same things now that he said 40 years ago,
Right.
Yeah.
and they have tried desperately to find something wrong, and the only thing they can come up with is a cornball, moron-level argument that communism and socialism are the same thing,
Well, Bernie
even
invited
though...
Fidel Castro over for the inauguration lunch.
How about that? Fidel Castro almost
he's
played
anxious to come.
shortstop for the Washington baseball team
kidding.
a long time.
We know Fidel's not
I'm
coming.
kidding too, but if Castro had played Major League Baseball, the
He would be a
entire
hero.
history of the last 50 years would be quite different.
We
I
have a
don't
remarkable
understand-
ability.
I don't understand though, like
that's
for the Sanders supporters, what do we gain from a Sanders presidency?
Everything.
Everything.
But what
First
is
of all-
everything?
First of all,
What is everything?
Healthcare, honesty,
no,
and
no, that's false.
That is false.
We get a battle that's fought
You
from
get-
the left
you
as
get a
opposed to a
debate
battle
that
that's fought from the
starts.
center.
What is wrong
not
with the
even fought from
center?
the center.
Democracy is about compromise.
If
What's
you-
wrong with the
because
center?
if you're fighting for the center from the center and you're fighting against
you
the
can only
right,
give
you're
up a
gonna
lot.
you're gonna go rightwards. You need to start that battle from the left.
I
what
don't
we
agree
really
with
want.
that at all.
Well,
Right
what do,
now,
what
we
do you
don't
think
even
about
have a
the
center, we have a-
coronavirus, for example? I mean, don't you think universal health care would be a good idea
Forget
in the
universal
face
health
No, I
of a
don't.
potential
focus
I don't think
on
that has
just-
anything to do with
I'll
the
tell you
coronavirus.
what you focus on.
Yes,
Okay?
please.
You focus on the most important issue.
What is it?
Which is our federal courts and our rule of law.
Right. Getting rid of
Okay.
Trump and
Well,
getting
one thing you didn't have
control
to
of
worry
the
about.
nominations.
One thing you didn't have to worry about is who Bernie Sanders would nominate. Now, Amy Klobuchar, on the other hand, has actually voted for unqualified people put forth by Donald Trump. She voted with the Republicans on a number of people.
They all just waved them all
Okay,
in.
those
Well,
are
and I
there
also
for the
think,
rest of their life.
So,
She compromises. She works on both sides of the aisle. No, she really doesn't. They never come to her side of the aisle. She goes to their side.
okay, be that as it is, you also have to remember too that the majority of Americans are center right. We don't win with Sanders. That's just the bottom line. And I'm sorry, but like speaking,
let me tell you something.
Speaking as a minority, I think the issue is that the people who tend to support Sanders are white because minorities have a
white?
very different perspective.
Am I white?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I'm extraterrestrial and I'm all for it.
Well, let me tell you
Well,
something.
I'd like
okay?
to know. I would like for you to expand on that idea.
I'd like to know how I'm white.
that. I don't know how you're white, but anyway, you're
Well, why'd
not.
you
Because
say
you
it?
can pass as white.
Yeah.
And,
That's why you're-
America
Really?
is not really center right. America, for 85% of the dialogue that's on the media and even the coffee clatch conversations,
won New
America
Hampshire.
is corporate.
He won Vermont. What is the predominant race in those states? He lost South
Well,
Carolina.
what
What's the
happened
predominant
tonight?
race in the
Biden
electorate?
won in the
What about-
South, where the Democrats aren't going to win anyway. Almost all 8
We
of
say
his
they're not gonna
9
win, we don't
wins
know.
tonight are in places where the
Well, let's
Democrats
think
are
that
not
the-
I'm
let's
more
think that
interested
they're all gonna
in the politics of what you're saying. Why
Right.
do you suppose
Because-
that Hispanics, and I know a lot of Hispanics that support Bernie Sanders.
I do too.
But I
he
want to
actually
know why you feel like
more.
that's not, when
Why I feel that that's not-
75% of the people in the United States want universal health care.
When
Why
you
can't they
have
win?
when you have someone like Sanders who has dismissed the idea that he would need support from other groups, say white women in the suburbs,
Where did he
or
dismiss
moderate
dismiss
Republicans,
anybody?
the bottom
Where
line
did
is
he
like, why are you
dismiss?
dismissing that?
There's
Why
no
are
such
you
thing as
dismissing
dismiss.
that?
I'm not dismissing. I'm asking.
No, I
you.
said he's dismissed
There's
it. I
no
didn't say
moderate
you
people
did.
dismissed.
He has dismissed it when he was asked about it. He dismissed those particular groups as not necessary to his win. He said young people and Hispanics. Those are the least reliable in the voting.
He did
Then
not
why
Not
did
just
AOC
Democrats.
get out there and campaign for him?
Well, why doesn't she?
She did.
A big deal. She doesn't mean anything in Texas. She means nothing in Texas.
Really?
Yes, really.
Well, her organization is getting a woman elected in West Texas.
We will see.
In El Paso.
Do
We will
Hispanics
see.
think
Well,
that
she was bleeding on the way
Biden is gonna outwit Trump in a debate and win?
So,
I don't
Hold
even
on,
think
I
people
asked
are
him.
watching
but let
the
me
debates,
explain. Let me
frankly.
explain something to the guy who says
really don't think
I'm
they're
white,
watching.
like I'm an old white man. Okay. I grew up as a Jew in Houston,
Right.
Texas.
And I
You
grew
think
up as
that's
a
white?
Hispanic.
Okay.
I grew up as Hispanic. I
also
couldn't
grew
pass.
up as a fat Jewish faggot.
Yeah.
long before you
I
were
grew up
even
as
born,
Hispanic
probably.
faggot.
Well, you
Yeah,
weren't there back
73.
in.
Big deal. What does
Yeah.
that have to do with anything?
Well, I don't know. I
My
guess
point
because like
is-
I didn't have job opportunities that I should have had.
yeah.
My father didn't have
happens.
job opportunities that he should have had. My father died last week, still being discriminated against. When I asked a real, white older man if my dad might be happy, or what about where his mother lives, from one of the real, good families of Houston,
Yeah.
I said, I have to find a place for my dad to live. Now, he doesn't know my father. He didn't know my father's ability to pay for anything. And he repeatedly said, I don't think your father would be happy. He just wouldn't be happy. I'd say, why? Well, it just wouldn't be his kind of place. Well, how is that? Can you define that? Well, what he meant is that the people who live there belong to the Houston Country Club and the Bio Club. And Jews don't belong to either.
Yeah.
That's what he meant.
That's
My
the
father was
legacy.
90 years old at the time that he's being discriminated against. So here it is, simply by his name and the assumption that he's a Jew. So for you not to think that a Jew is not discriminated against is just wrong. We live in a period of intense,
First of all, I didn't say that I think that they're not
anti-Semitic
discriminated
violence.
against. But I can certainly
Well, do you know what
say-
an insult
but
it
I
is?
can
Bring it
certainly
back
say-
to the election.
Yeah, happily.
This
That
is
would
the
be good.
election. This is the election.
I thought
Because
that we'll be able to to project our thoughts and not kind of like I have a something I believe, but I don't try
Tell
to
us what you believe.
But I don't try to present it as personal, that if you don't believe what I believe, that it's like we're against each other. So I like the idea that facts kind of explain a lot of different things, but opinion kind of like divide us. Like we all have our strong feelings about how we feel about things based on a lot of things long before politics came along, how we were raised, our environments, all that affect the way we see things. But when I sit in a room of ideas and people, I don't want to use my experiences as to. I'm just saying personally.
We are what our experiences are.
Well, and for the audience and the people that are listening, and so I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, of course.
You might be.
But I just like the idea that we can kind of like educate the listening audience.
You educate them by pointing out to somebody that, in fact, when you looked at the debate stage this time, for the first time in history, we have two people who are thought to be some of the leaders to get the nomination are actually 80-year-old Jews who faced discrimination their entire life. One of them's parents came over here as immigrants, penniless. And I can assure you, never did he look in the mirror and say, I can grow up in America and be president. What he said in 2015 is, that Elizabeth Warren, she's a lot more palatable to people than I am. We share the same views. Nobody's going to vote for a cranky old Jew like me. I'm going to convince Elizabeth to run instead of me. And then Hillary Clinton said, it's my turn. Get out of the way, Elizabeth. And so Bernie ran instead. And now Bernie wakes up every day thinking, where in the hell am I?
But
Who in the world would have thought
I'm
I'm
on
a
my way
rock
to
star at
another
80 years
brokered
old?
convention.
A cranky old Jew.
Right, but they're going to do everything they can to make sure that he doesn't win.
They are.
And it makes and what I'm wondering is where back to the
Okay, but
question
you
I
missed
asked originally.
what I think
Where's
is most
the cognitive
profound.
dissonance? Why are people supposing that Biden can beat Trump?
I have no idea, but the most profound thing is that you also had in the race Michael Bennett from Colorado, the son of 2 Holocaust survivors. Nobody said, oh, look at there's another Jew on the stage. How unusual.
It wasn't
Nobody
convenient.
said, Marianne Williamson, she was a nice Jewish girl from Meyerland, Houston, Texas.
Do you think if they would have been a Jew that supported AIPAC, then they would have been like, a Jew,
But
a
when
Jew,
you hear the word,
vote for the Jew.
But I don't understand what
Actually,
that's.
If you
Thomas,
don't vote for the Jew, you're anti-Semitic.
But I don't understand when you use that word. What is it supposed to? Because in my
Because
community,
he used white male as a pejorative.
But I'm saying from you.
He used white male as a pejorative.
But I'm just saying.
I
think
didn't
of-
use it
Yes,
as
you
pejorative.
absolutely
That was your
did.
interpretation.
No,
What I'm
it's not my
saying is the
interpretation.
question that I
Believe
was
me, I hear it all the
answering.
time.
The question that I was answering, sir, was
You
the
don't have to call me
fact.
sir.
Yes,
We're
I
here.
do, because you're not listening to me. I'm just
am.
making this very clear. I'm answering a question very specific to why people of certain minorities are not feeling it for Sanders.
They actually
okay?
are.
We are a group that has had to look at the larger issues with elections. Okay, we don't
expected
vote.
to
We
win in
never.
California because
we
of the
never vote for the
Hispanics.
people we like. We vote for the people that we think white people are going to vote for. That's
Yeah,
So that's
bottom
a blanket
line.
statement.
I've heard
That's
this
a
before.
real
Yeah, that's what I
blanket
heard about
statement.
black people in South.
That's the
South
bottom
just
line.
tonight.
But how do one person represent
Why would
everybody?
you know if you don't know them?
I can't represent everybody.
I don't think that
th-
approaches statistical significance.
It's not even accurate.
And speaking of statistical significance, and
Well,
back to
say-
your point, 56 out of 60 times Sanders beats Trump. Nobody else can say that 56 out of 60
It's the
polls.
down ballots they're worried about. They worried about if
Yeah.
Bernie is nominated, it will affect the down ballots. What good would it do to have Bernie
That's
in the White
crybaby
House and
stuff.
lose the House and the Senate? He won't be able to get anything done except through executive order. It's no power in the presidency.
But
The
Biden
power
wouldn't
is in the
get
Senate and the
anything
House.
done.
right.
Biden will
Nancy
not even
Pelosi's
win.
the most powerful person in
over
the country.
what's going on now.
What good would it do to have Bernie as the president and we lose the House
I
and
thought all
they
the
stay in the
Democrats
Senate?
wanted to get
That's
rid of
a
Trump.
Yeah,
that's
I
a
I thought this was
manufactured
all about
argument.
for 4 years. We've got to get rid of Trump.
That's
and now
what it
you've
is
got
about.
Biden.
That's why people
now
went with
you've got
Biden.
Biden.
Well, because we
Biden's
understand
gonna
now,
beat Trump.
we learned
He's not.
something. We learned something that the real power is controlling the House and the Senate up under the Obama administration when they declared that we'll make sure that nothing you want to get done,
We
want to get
learned
done.
it then. We've known it
Technically
forever.
We only got
President of all
an
time
affordable
impeached,
health
but
care because
been
we had
acquitted.
the Senate and we had the House.
The
Since
only
then,
way,
we
not
had
a
the-
new fact.
the only way that we're
well,
getting
the listening
universal
audience don't
health
always
care
know that.
in this country
We live in a low
is through
information
Article
society
5
where we
of the
assume people know what
Constitution.
they
We
don't
do.
know.
And you know when you say
Getting
moderate
past
Republicans,
state by state.
these moderate
Article
Republicans,
5 of the Constitution. You get things passed state by state. We can't trust Congress anymore, whether they're Republican or Democrat. They're corrupt. The system's corrupt. They failed us. The only way to get change happening is through Article 5 of the Constitution, state by state. You have to work on anti-corruption and pro-democracy.
well, first
No
you have
corruption.
to protect the federal
More-
court.
And what about the?
Yeah,
what
but
about
you can
the,
change it state by state.
No.
What are
everything
we
can be
saying
changed.
about Russian involvement in the election?
Bullcorn.
So that's not true.
That's not facts?
There's
Well,
no
that is
Russian
facts,
involvement in the
Stacey.
So
election.
so if we
Stacey, that's
we
just
dismiss
facts.
facts, if we dismiss facts, we should never even
Okay,
have a
I know you
conversation.
don't believe
Something
it,
has
but-
to be
Okay,
facts.
okay. So you guys believe that for $150,000, Russia influenced our election, and the millions of dollars that Trump spent on Cambridge Analytica,
First of all, it wasn't Trump who spent it.
but it was yes,
It was one
was
family
on
who
behalf
spent
of-
it.
yeah, but all that money
And you know who worked,
doesn't
worked for
compare
that
to the
those
super
people?
genius Russians
But there's
who
some-
did it with $45,000
Remind me, I
worth of
forgot who it was.
Facebook ads. Really?
But that's bad and bad. Like this is a little bad, and that's a bad.
Yeah,
so
but what do we
you
talk about?
choose
Like
it.
every time, I mean, even
Kellyanne
Trump's
Conway
policies have nothing to
and
do
Steve Bannon.
with,
But we gotta look at facts.
We're
We
putting
can't
Trump's
dismiss facts
campaign
and just wash them away
at
and
the
say
behest
What facts?
of
they
the
were
family that owned
reported
Cambridge
that
Analytica.
it has nothing to do with Trump. Russia had influence and still do today
Yeah,
in
they're
our
involved in
elections.
this
How are they?
And if that's
How are
not
they influencing our elections?
but
How?
not for me to answer that is for you to say I don't believe it. I don't
No,
want
I'm
to convince
asking you
facts.
how. Facebook
I,
posts.
I don't look
Yes.
when I go out.
Yeah.
Why
social
don't
media.
you know?
Because when the sun's up in the sky, I'm not going to go get the
Stacey, you know
signs to
what?
prove
I'm the
that the
moderator,
sun is in
and
the sky.
honestly, we're not even going to talk about this nonsense.
If it's a fact,
because
you
it's
should be able
just
to tell
nonsense
me.
to deny that it happened. Okay? It's nonsense.
There is no
And we're not
proof.
going to, Stacey, we're not even going to talk about that because it's nonsense to say otherwise.
Right.
I'd like to go
I'm
back
in
to the
charge.
fallacy
You ask
that
somebody
the
for
down
facts and
ballot
they
is
say
going
it's
to be
nonsense to
affected
deny
when in
it.
fact
No,
it
what
will
I'm saying is
likely
I
be
won't argue a
otherwise.
point
Yeah.
that's pointless to
Because
argue.
you don't have. Are they hacking the
It'll
machines?
absolutely be improved.
Are
Actually,
they
Let's us talk
her
about that.
speak.
Yeah.
influencing what?
Thank you.
What are they doing?
Stop, Stacey. We have
can't
two
tell
new
me.
voices tonight.
Nobody can tell me.
We have two new voices tonight. And we're not going to talk about silliness.
I didn't
and
bring it up.
is. You did bring it up.
No, I didn't. He did.
I did.
Oh, you brought up the Russians.
Yeah.
Well, that's silliness. You think it's true. She thinks it's fake. Fake is silly.
Can I make this point that people don't understand what socialism is?
That's absolutely correct.
I already
And the
said
failure
that.
of the Democratic Party is that they are so ignorant in their messaging that we had Pete Buttigieg last week, and we had, Chris Matthews got fired over this stupidity by just about saying Khrushchev was going to be here at the inauguration along with Fidel Castro.
But Russia has so much influence over everything. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Stacey, don't be foolish. I've told you that before.
We let that go.
Russia does have influence. Russia pulls Trump's buttons all the time. That's where Trump gets his
And
money.
Israel doesn't, and Saudi Arabia doesn't.
Stacey, we're not going to talk about foolishness.
Russia, Russia, Russia.
Actually,
they all pull.
believe it or not, as anti-Semitic as Putin is, he's in bed with the Israelis too, because it's all about money. And they're all corrupt, and they all launder money, and they launder it through the Secretary of Commerce's bank, the banks of Cyprus.
They're going to be digging for oil in the Golan Heights next.
They probably are.
Who's behind that?
Okay, we're
Genie
here
oil.
from two quiet people.
Okay, I'm gonna say, since I haven't spoken yet,
Speak up.
and I'm listening to the Russian thing. The one issue I have with the Russian issue is that I have never seen one person yet say Russia made me change my vote. Now,
Well,
one
what is
single
this? What
person-
foolishness is that?
Not one
They
single
don't
person.
know it. That's the point. It's false
You know,
advertising.
Why are
we
you
all
shutting them
know,
up?
and they don't know.
Well,
I'm
because
sorry.
don't you
I
let 'em
don't-
you know how they did it?
I-
You know how they did it? Because today, when you look at something online,
Propaganda.
that looks like it's a news thing. Most of it,
Yeah.
half of it, is not even close to being true.
That's in the New
Somebody
York
has to
Times, too.
No, that's not true.
Who you
That
saying?
is
She's
true.
saying
Once in a while,
propaganda
it's true.
can
That is
influence
true.
people.
And on your point,
No,
I mean, when you, on your point earlier, when it comes to, okay, why are you voting for Biden when he did this, when
I
he
didn't
did
vote for
this, when he
Biden.
did this? Well, I know you didn't, but when you ask people who they support and you say, how could you support that person? You can't get their perspective.
From
I mean,
who?
You can't get
Well,
For
some
which
people say
candidate?
it's just-
For which candidate?
Biden, okay? People are talking about why are African Americans
You know why
voting
they
for
say they vote
Biden?
for Biden?
I
Believe
need
it
to
or
ask an
not.
African American.
You know why they say? Because they
and
trust
they may
him.
not even want to tell
He's
me.
trustworthy. You know what he says? Hey, man, you know me. You know I wouldn't lie to you. You know me, man, like a car salesman that his father was.
Hey, I'm not going to.
So you saying he used his?
Hey, buddy,
You say
you know
so?
me.
He's so. Were you telling me he inflects our language and our culture, and that makes
When-
us like him?
when
So
he
we.
needs to.
So
Just
I'm
like a
asking
car
this.
salesman
So
asks you your name 20
To your
times.
point.
how about why
So
don't
can I
you
let
tell
wait?
us
Can
why
I?
you think black
Because
people...
so to your point.
He does it to everybody.
So and to your point, you saying Afro Americans don't have the intellect to make a.
I certainly did
let me
not say
finish.
Mine was not a race-related
Okay,
matter.
listen. So you're saying you made the
I have
example.
to be able to respond to
I can't.
what you're saying.
If you give me a chance, let me respond. Because you said he's Afro Americans are relatable to. Come on, man. So his language, like you saying, he
You read
connects
what
them.
I said. That's what he says all the time to everybody.
But are you
If
saying
he-
that's how we relate to him? That's why we
Not
go
as
into
because you're
voting
black.
booth?
It's because that's how a salesman does things. They
So is
ask
he
you your
selling
name.
us?
Yes, he's selling everybody on a
I
bunch
say
of
it's
bullshit.
insulting your intelligence.
So when
Well,
you
when I
make that
say
statement,
That's
what you say
insulting your
to Afro Americans, and to me,
I told you it's not a race thing. It's when
But
you
you're
go
not letting
talk
me
to
finish
him.
my
When
point.
I go to talk to him, he would say the same thing to me.
so you now let me finish my point because I'm going by what you're saying to describe to him and explain why Afro Americans support Joe, and you're saying you never met an Afro American that could justify.
No,
why they
no,
were
I did
voting.
not say that.
Okay, tell me what
I
you said.
did not say that.
didn't
So you saying
I said we cannot get the perspective on why someone votes for somebody
Meaning
unless we
anyone.
walk in their shoes. And so for
Okay.
us,
Or listen to them.
For him to say,
Right.
I don't understand why you're doing that. Look, he did this, 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 and this, and you still voted for him. I don't understand.
Okay.
What the problem is that he doesn't understand.
because
he
he don't
doesn't
see
walk
it
in
through
your
the.
shoes.
I agree with
Because he
you.
won't listen.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was saying
You've been
is,
interrupted 8 times.
I was listening. I'm telling you.
Joe Biden would never be cool enough, fly enough, and use enough ebonics to make intelligent Afro Americans.
ebonics.
Well, when you interjected his swag and his demeanor, it makes it seem like he's relating to our culture, and we. I didn't make you said, come on, man, you did that. I
said
didn't say
that's
that.
him. He
So
does
why
that
do
to
you-
everyone.
Why did you even bring it up then?
Because that's his style. He's selling.
Can I
so
just
he's selling
ask
us
if-
what?
He's
Guys.
selling me the same way.
Guys.
But you're not Afro-American. Why would
He's
he?
not, that's exactly right.
Why-
That's his sales style.
Why
That's
are
his
black
sales
people
pitch.
and why are Hispanics voting for Biden? Just tell us. We'll listen.
I'll let you
We'll
know.
listen this time.
I'm just explaining that he's just employing common sales tactics.
Explain him.
History.
Don't
history.
explain him.
So history, he's always been a part of the Democratic Party. And we already know that generationally, we don't, Democrats, and I won't just put them on black Democrats, the Democratic Party doesn't always care about the character, the gender of the person that's running. Blue is blue, and that's all they see. And sometimes, because we live in a low information society that watches a lot of trash on TV, they never take the time to find out what needs to be changed until it affects them directly. They don't look at the person's character. They do what their mom did, their grandmother did, and the person. They don't teach you in church to be a Democrat. They don't teach you in school to be a Democrat. Nowhere in the Afro-American community that I grew up in did someone told me that you should be a Democrat or that it was even important to vote. But when you did decide to get involved in the political cycle or the political arena, you knew that because of your, not your race, but your finance, how you describe it, where you were on the scale of money, put you more in a Democratic line than it was what your color was. When you down here, the people at the lower, the bottom, people at the bottom tend to be more liberal and tend to vote more Democratic.
But
The
Bernie's
people
more liberal.
Well, he's not broke. He didn't grow up
Actually,
broke.
he did grow up broke.
did.
Grew up broke,
He absolutely did.
But
And
we don't know him. When we see that face, we don't see a broke face.
That's
we don't
right.
see someone, because we relate to poor to color. We just, no matter what, we
Biden's
wrong.
pretty darn white.
Listen, we relate to poor to color, and we wrong for it. But we believe, and we make the assumption and predetermine that there are not such thing as poor white people. And we're wrong for that when we make that assumption, but we based on the fact that the most of the people we know, they're doing better than us. So we assume that if you're born into this country and you're born white in this country, that you're going to have a better.
Okay, well, you didn't listen about Bernie's history.
I think that's a
which
reasonable
was
assumption.
Bernie's
all it
parents
is
came
assumption.
here- Bernie's parents came here as victims of anti-Semitic violence, penniless.
We don't know that story though.
Yes, we do. It's history.
Right.
But how long ago was that
he's
compared to
saying they
he's been in
don't.
the political career? How long has he been in politics?
His whole adult
Whole
life.
life.
So his whole life, he is not
You know
a
where
part
he
of being
was?
poor, right?
You know
So
where he
once he
was?
got
To
into
march with-
politics, he left being poor.
He used to be. He was a civil rights worker in the
Yeah.
'60s.
So
When he
he
was
was
the
arrested
mayor, he
multiple
was pretty
times for-
poor.
When the last time
That's
he's
right.
been poor though?
While Biden was arguing
about
for
4 years
segregation.
ago.
4 years
Right?
ago, he was
Biden
And then he
poor.
wrote a
Fight for their
book, and he
rights.
made a lot of money on his book 4 years ago.
I think senators make a pretty good salary, so
How do you make the case he was poor 4 years
I didn't
ago?
say he's poor. He grew up
Nobody
poor.
said he was poor.
So when can we look at his
What kind
life
of
and
assumption
attach
is
him
it?
to
But
poor?
comparing Sanders to Biden, that's not much of an argument.
Well, because look who he
You know why
aligned
it's
his
not
life
much
with.
of an
You know,
argument?
being
Because
poor.
Biden also came here. His parents or grandparents were immigrants, and they were Catholic. And when both Biden and Sanders grew up, and Bloomberg grew up, we didn't have Catholic presidents either. A Catholic
Not
kid
until
couldn't-
John F.
Right.
Kennedy
And you
came
know what they
along
said?
and said, I don't report to the Pope.
That's
And I
right.
was
And you know what they
Jew.
said about John Kennedy? How do we know he's not going to report to the Pope? Just like they said, how do we know that Bernie isn't going to report to Castro? Okay? So Bernie and Biden and Bloomberg are not so different in that regard. What is strange, though, is that some people have no sense of that history.
You
They
know,
have
they're-
no idea
they're idea
that white
poor.
people
As
discriminate
long as we're
against
talking
white
about
people.
Poor,
Certainly
Black
wasn't on
people
MSNBC,
discriminate against black
was
people.
it?
idea
They
poor.
certainly weren't
So
singing
if we take
Sanders'
this,
praises
for
on
example,
MSNBC.
No, they weren't.
I was a lapsed Catholic before I was a lapsed Democrat. The reason I'm a lapsed Democrat is because just like the Republicans, once they were hoarded to money, they weren't doing anything for me anymore. That's why I think it's brilliant that someone like Sanders is smart enough to appeal to people who are tired of the Democrats and yet smart enough to know that the two-party system isn't going to present any opportunities for an independent, and therefore he is taking over the
we're not gonna
machinery.
have an independent.
But he is causing so much consternation to the elite and to the corporate-funded everybody else in the party, like Joe and like Miss Klobuchar, that now we have a birthday cake full of possibilities as long as people look at the history, and the history is widely available. You don't even have to go to the library. You can go to the internet and read about Bernie. And all of this is true. And as for people not having a single vote changed because of all of the stuff that's going around, you know, what is stupid about that argument is that our ideas are so poor and our dialogue so polluted that most people's minds were totally confused long before they went in and cast a ballot. They were already screwed in the head with all these nonsense ideas, and they're being generated not by just the Russians and not just by the Israelis and the AIPC, but by all of the corporate stooges promoting all of the corporatism. And I'm sure that Amanda could follow up on
Why
what
didn't
I'm
Amanda
saying.
follow up for a
Absolutely,
change?
absolutely. The thing that kills me about people's reaction to Bernie Sanders is he's not even that far left. He isn't doing. He isn't presenting
FDR.
anything that we didn't already have under FDR.
Exactly.
But we have shifted so much. We've been so brainwashed by the typical kind of capitalist rhetoric to believe that what he's doing, that he's somehow some sort of radical.
You know how weird it is? He is an FDR Democrat. And what some people don't understand is that if you were a black person in the South, or you were Hispanic in the South, or you were a Jew in the South, you actually voted with the Republicans because they weren't Democrats in the South. They were Dixiecrats. They were the party of the KKK. Okay?
You have a phone
and
call.
your grandmother or your great-grandmother probably voted as a Republican, and so did yours.
No.
Hispanics in Houston, Texas.
They didn't vote.
So you
Not
also-
mine. Mine were
Okay.
Dixiecrats all the way.
And they were in the deep south, like not deep
Okay.
south. They were in the border town. But one thing
Well, here
to
in
your comment
Houston-
about not knowing the history of Bernie Sanders, I want to respond to that. You know, when he did that 60 Minutes interview that got him in a lot of trouble over Cuba, there was the point where I believe Leslie Stahl asked him about his, growing up. And he didn't want to answer the question. He said, "Well, you really never
That's
talk
right.
about your personal life." He's like, "Oh, I don't want to get into my personal life."
And that's why he
and
will
I
fail.
think that's where a lot of that story is just untold because he has not talked about it.
And
at
you know, the
all.
only time Hillary really connected with people
Howard
is when she
Stern.
would talk about her youth.
Yeah, Howard Stern. She opened up and talked
Exactly.
about all of that stuff, and people responded. A lot of people who were
Right.
Trump supporters
And
responded
you know,
and,
when
said
Elizabeth
this was a whole
Taylor,
different story.
Elizabeth Warren lost her position.
We all know.
Yeah.
So what if I made
Elizabeth Taylor, Elizabeth.
what if I made the argument that you've heard often before that there's really no two parties, that there's just no such thing really as a Republican and Democratic Party once they
I
all
hope we
get up
get
there.
there. I hope we get there
There
soon.
is two parties.
Well, what I'm
I
saying.
know that.
Well,
that's
we
why
know
I
there's two
said I
parties.
hope
I'm
we
with you.
get there soon
but
because they're
At
a
this point, I want to see a
nuisance.
centrist party
You know,
that's separate
right
from
No, we don't want a centrist
Republicans.
party.
No,
There
I
are
just mean so
very-
they
We
can
want
be
a
open
strongly
about it.
committed liberal party who
Yeah.
understands what civil rights are, so that
Absolutely.
we have judges who honor civil rights.
Right.
Because you know what? No one is safe.
But I think
No
we're
one
being
is
We
safe.
already
When
have,
we have a police.
46% of America says they're independent, so we're getting there.
We're
That's
duped.
true.
I believe we've been duped.
Yeah,
Just
Russia-
like wrestling, when you watch wrestling, and a lot of people watch wrestling, it's a script. They go out there and they perform, but at the end of the match, they use the same dressing rooms, and they eat at the same restaurants.
right.
So I believe when we look at the Republicans and Democrats, I believe that when we get all emotional, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican,
Yeah.
these guys are up there laughing at us.
No, they're not laughing.
And that's
Because
why Bernie
they don't
Sanders
hate
has
each other
such an
as much-
appeal
they
to
don't-
so many people.
They don't hate each other as much as we begin to hate each other for what we
Actually, I
believe.
think you underestimate the number.
That's
amount
right,
of
because
contempt
anytime
that there
I
is.
criticize the Democratic Party, I get called a Russia bot.
No, you get called a Russia bot because you don't believe the Russians interfered with the election, Stacey.
Well, there's no proof.
It's not a
That's
good
true.
argument. Even if it wasn't, it's just not a
But you see,
Wait,
this is what's going on.
We
is the
have somebody
Democrats-
watching.
The Democrats.
Stop, Stacey, we have a call.
Let's get the phone call. Get
It's
the
a
phone-
breakthrough.
Caller, you're on.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello?
what's your name?
Hi. Oh, this is Stacy. Another Stacy. Hi, Stacy.
Hi.
Doing great. I'm just gonna cut to the chase, okay? It's Biden and Beto. What do we got there, right? That's what's gonna happen, right?
Biden and
Biden,
Beto?
Beto for vice president.
Yeah. That's what
Lord.
it's doing,
Hopefully, we
right?
want to have somebody who has something on their
We need a female.
brains.
We need a female vice president.
I don't care. Who cares about female?
Yeah, but the reality is it will be a female.
We need a
I think
female.
it'll
we
be
need a
Elizabeth
female.
Taylor, like you were
A female
starting.
vice
No, what is it
president.
gonna be?
earlier.
I want policy.
It's going to be Stacey Abrams, which is
Or
great.
Kamala.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
Kamala.
I'd
Although
love to
it's
see
not going to
Stacey
be
Abrams.
Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris does come with baggage.
Yeah.
Because she's a prosecutor. Stacey Abrams, on the other
I
hand,
can agree to that.
actually has been in the fight since she started working as a lawyer.
Yeah, I would.
And before that, Stacey Abrams is about as pure as you get.
Okay.
Okay? Stacey Abrams is out there making sure that you have a right to vote.
You're convincing me.
Well, Stacey Abrams met with Biden before he announced, and he got a commitment from her that she would run as his vice president. Now, that's sad to me.
I like that.
Because honestly, Stacey Abrams needs to be the attorney general and restore some confidence in that system
Or
and be in
Supreme
charge
Court
of who gets
justice.
appointed to be judges.
Can I ask this question? Because I knew when someone asked me, when Amy and Beto and Buttigieg
Yeah.
ran to Texas and endorsed, like, why would they do that? I said, because they want jobs.
Oh yeah, there was.
That's
I said they
there were
want
some
jobs.
behind-the-scenes
Don't you
feelings
see
there.
Amy as Secretary of State?
No.
No,
Oh,
Not
you
at
see
all.
Buttigieg
Department of
as-
Transportation.
No, these
Housing
people.
and urban development.
Listen, these people are vying for high positions in an
That's right.
administration they
Buttigieg,
perceive.
I can believe.
Okay,
Secretary of
and
Defense,
you know what?
Secretary of
Secretary of
State.
Defense,
That's
Secretary.
Biden was very uncomfortable
Buttigieg?
yesterday
Yeah.
when he was
Secretary of
asked.
State?
So do you think Buttigieg
Secretary of
has a
Defense
chance
is
of
a
being
better
vice
guess.
president?
Lord help us.
well, he's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
a part of the
Well,
administration.
No, my son.
You're
Bo
talking
is
about a
gonna be.
Democrat getting elected and him
No, he
selecting
didn't.
somebody to be their
But you know why
Secretary
he
of
couldn't
Defense.
say
He's a
yes?
child.
Because he already promises to Stacey
Maybe a
Abrams.
child, but he's
And we
a-
know that because
he's a
months and
decorated
months ago,
veteran, so-
Stacey Abrams was asked, would you be willing to serve as vice president?
That's another possibility.
That was
yeah.
recently on The View as well.
And she said, anyone on the podium.
Did you see how uncomfortable they were when this was the most strangest time in TV when they had to, it was so disingenuous when they were endorsing him. Like, you're not pulling it off. Like, I was like, oh my God, it had to be the toughest thing to do for them to go up there and endorse Biden. And when you could tell they were invested in it. It was disingenuous.
Listen, if Biden wins, you can forget about it. Say hello to 4 more years of Trump, because there's
right.
no chance. There's
don't wanna-
no
I
way
no,
that Biden is
no.
going to beat Trump. No way in
Actually,
hell.
there is.
Well-
Stacey Abrams is his running mate.
So that's been
Stacey
the-
Abrams is anybody's running mate.
That's been the big question. You know, there has been that whole, no matter who the nominee is, we need to get behind whoever that person is. And there has been the war that has been going on between those who support Bernie Sanders and those who support anybody other than Bernie Sanders.
Okay,
So
well, the important thing
the
is who is
bridge-
actually going to be vice president. Because what we know is Bernie is not going to serve a second term, and neither is Biden. Because nobody's going to vote for an 84-year-old.
And Biden has, I think, made it clear that he was only going to do 4 years.
Everybody
Well,
says
it doesn't
that.
matter. Nobody's going to vote for him in 4
Everybody
years.
says that.
So this is
Okay.
an educational moment.
So it's
for-
really who we are electing to be the next president.
Is
Either
Biden
before
going
4
to
years.
inspire the independent and the non-voter to go out
Stacey
and vote?
is.
Because that's what you need to beat Trump.
Stacey.
Oh, we're gonna hold our nose and go in like we did in
What-
2016.
Yeah, but,
nobody's gonna be
not
inspired.
Not enough people did that.
Yeah,
Actually, she
exactly.
won the
They
popular
lost.
vote.
She won the
Yeah,
popular
but you
vote,
know
thank
what?
you.
She's not president, is she?
No, because you know why?
She's not.
She didn't get
because
elected?
because for 3 years nobody focused on giving us better elections and more democracy.
that is the
Everybody was
reason.
too busy focusing on Russia. And where did that get us?
That it didn't
4
have
more
an
years
issue
of
at
Trump.
all, and you know why?
Good luck. Good
You know
on
why?
You got to impeach president.
You know why
Because
that
I tell you
wasn't
what,
an issue?
it didn't inspire the independents to go out and vote for,
No.
for Biden.
She
independents
didn't
is a
inspire
wide
the Democrats
That's
in
right. Well,
Michigan,
they ain't go,
and
the
in
non-voters ain't
Pennsylvania,
going to go out and
in
vote
Wisconsin.
for Biden.
She lost 3 states by a tiny number of voters
She
because
still
she
lost.
didn't show up.
Russia
Because she
energized.
was an arrogant idiot, and as were the people around her.
It energized.
I agree with arrogant idiot.
How much money are we going to put on if Biden is the nominee, Trump will win?
So let's educate the public right here.
Yeah.
There's
I'm gonna vote for
only
I'm counting on the vice president to actually carry the day.
there's only a few states that decides who the president is. Most people don't realize that everything's baked in.
Well, I'll tell you who knew. Cambridge Analytica.
So
They knew.
So let me make the point to the public. Red is going to be red. Texas is not going to turn blue, no matter how many of us.
We're officially purple now, though. And a
I
lot of
don't
it
know.
has to do
I
with
have to
all
look
the
at the
people from
facts.
West
I'll have
Coast
to
and
see
New
the
York
map. I'll have to
moving
see the
here.
map. Can I finish my point? And I'll
be
let you
some
go.
wishful
It'll take
driving
me,
up our
it'll take
property
me 10
values,
seconds
but
to make
it's
this
turning
point.
us
10 seconds to make this point. The election will only be determined by a few swing states. So when we talk about how's it going to go, it's only going to go according to a few people that don't care about Russia, don't care about this or that. They make a decision at the last minute, in the last moment, they go in, and that's how we get the president, the swing states.
I mean, we should really talk about the United States electoral system. You know, we're the only major country that doesn't have national elections. It's different state to state. That's ridiculous. The
Yeah, we're not
UN
going to talk about that tonight.
it's
We're going
in-
to talk about the election this time.
Oh, okay. This is an election.
Here, I'll talk about it. Then he'll have to tell me to shut up too.
How much time do we have
No, we're
left?
not
What do we
gonna
got
talk
time?
about it.
We got
have-
10 minutes.
We got 10 minutes
I
left.
got to say
Let's
that
get rid of that
Because we're not
electoral
gonna have- We're
college.
not going to have a discussion
It's
about
only
something
10
we
minutes
have
left.
absolutely.
Joe Biden got half of his votes today, the day before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because he all of a sudden was the most popular guy in the world.
Right.
It was political wheeling and dealing.
Absolutely.
was.
And
Who thinks there was anything different?
And so when you talk about disservice in elections, disservices in elections is when you go into the polling place and you see the name that you want to flip the button for, and you say, no, I can't do that because I need to flip it for the person where the vote will count. And so if you want election reform, we need to start in the primaries.
Actually, I'm more curious from you.
And what's that?
I'm more curious to hear from you, since you're the Republican here, right?
Who said what party I was from?
Well, I was told that you have a very strong right-wing views.
Remember, there's no such thing as a
incorrect,
Republican and a
but
Democrat.
anyway.
There's
Okay.
no such thing.
And anyway, I
That's
don't do my personal views on TV,
Yeah.
unlike the rest of you. But
I
anyway.
never did. I hadn't declared a party, and because I'm an Afro-American, you can't make the assumption that
I
who
don't
I
make the
voted for. or
And
what
I don't
party
have any
belong to.
views.
You know what?
Except that I'm 72 and I could easily serve 4 more terms. You know, and y'all will have to catch me on the
But-
jogging track.
But
But-
what were you
TV
saying?
show
What-
called-
Please.
what
If
were
we
you
want,
saying?
if you want
I'll
real
go next
election
door.
reform, we need to
Okay.
start in the primaries.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yep.
Everybody,
Hear about the down ballot.
everybody who walks.
worked for
I
it
mean, the
for 4 years.
Republicans' system is worse than the Democratic system, with a
But-
winner take
well,
all.
How is that true? I mean, they were able. I mean, you know, if the Republicans had, I mean, nothing was less democratic than Democratic primaries in 2016. I mean, if the Republicans were doing things the same way that the Democrats were doing things, Trump would have never gotten in.
I would say the Republican primaries were less democratic than the Democratic primaries. I mean, when you have winner-take-all system where you can get 35% of the vote and take all the delegates in the state, and every state has different rules. I mean, that is not a good system. That is not
It
a
wasn't
fair
Agree.
system.
democratic to have superdelegates who could go in and throw the whole election,
Exactly.
regardless of what the delegates,
And
the election
we have made progress with superdelegates because it used to be nothing but superdelegates. Primaries meant nothing in
I think-
1968.
I think we can all agree that
Well, actually, in
So-
It has to be
1968,
fixed.
I'm old enough to remember that really until about 1978, we used to stay up all night for 4 nights of the week and
Watching
watch
primaries.
watching the convention.
Yeah,
because
the
things
convention,
happen.
yes. That's what I meant to say.
You know,
convention.
all this
yeah.
talk about
That's
breaking
where they
through,
selected
women don't
the
get
president.
a chance. Well, actually, Shirley Chisholm had delegates at the Democratic convention. Sissy Farenthold from here had like 550 votes to be vice president. Okay, so
But they didn't win
women
them in
today
the
don't even know who
primaries.
Sissy Farenthold is or Shirley Chisholm is.
They did not win those in the primary.
Isn't
Shirley
it a-
Chisholm did not win hers.
Isn't it amazing that in 2020
You what?
I know both of them.
that
Well, I do
that
too. I mean, I don't know Shirley, but I mean, I didn't know Shirley, but I know Sissy.
I
The
think
point
it's-
is, people
not
don't
name
know
dropping
these things.
time.
I think it's amazing in 2020 that we still can't explain what the electoral college is and what it's supposed to do. No matter how passionate we are to get people out the vote and all that, if you really ask people how the president is elected, how the electoral college works, it is complex to explain to someone just that goes to work every day and is just concerned about paying their bills, how we elect the president.
Listen.
Be ages for a little bit.
Russiagate
The three
was
of us who are
complex.
older than you.
But you know,
Actually, I had to
we
learn that
can't
in
fix
school.
what Russia can do.
So I'm just saying,
we can
it's
fix
2000.
that, though.
it's-
We can fix the electoral college. This is America.
Not that
It
easy. Tell
needs
me
to
how
be
you can.
But when you
I'm
even
not saying we can, but
presidents
what can we do about
in
Russia?
the past 20 years who were
Well, yeah.
elected by the Supreme
Paper
Court.
ballots?
I
That's
mean,
a start.
Yeah, that is
But
a
nobody
start.
talked about that because that wasn't the point. The point was having somebody to blame and being able to censor Facebook, YouTube, and
Stacey,
Google
like I said, we're not going to
sites
talk about silliness.
behind
Okay, that's silliness, and
this-
I'm not going to
this
have
BS.
it at my table.
Okay.
We're
they
not going to talk about it.
Black Lives
Stacey,
Matter.
Stacey.
They've
not
censored
gonna talk
Cop
about Russia.
Watch, all because it was supposed to be Russian.
So that's going to go away just like the Taliban and everything else goes away. It's just the news of the day. Because it amazes me how at one time we were worried about terrorists and like nobody even talks about
Now we're
them on
funding
the.
them.
Well, I don't
We
know if
funded
that's
them to
happening,
begin- to
but they're
start
not.
with.
They're
We
not the
created
talk
the
of the day on
Taliban.
cable news networks.
They're not. No.
And
A
so,
woman from River Oaks created the Taliban.
So
How's
we have
that?
gotten rid of. We have no more terrorists.
So we all
Right.
agree
I know.
that we
Right?
need electoral reform.
Well, wait a minute. Everything is just the news of the day. So I predict that Biden winning 8 states is just today's news, and Bernie is going to rebound. And when we see the two of them debate, Joe is going to look worse than the man
Sure
with
is.
the
There are
amnesia.
450
He's going to look like he
delegates
can't
at state in California.
remember
Here's the question.
what his college degree was.
Voter fraud.
Well,
Are
he
we
doesn't
gonna
need
I
to
heard
find
him on
just make it
NPR.
up.
If you're that confident in that, I suggest you
Come
get down
on.
to Las Vegas and put a pile of money on that because you'll win big.
a pile of money on what?
On Bernie Sanders coming back and winning the nomination.
You
I
think
will.
so?
Well, the amount, well, the
he
amount
made
right
the
now.
prediction that he will. And I thought, if you really believe that,
If you
Put-
believe that Bernie's
Take
gonna be,
your
that,
money,
that Biden's going to be embarrassed,
go down,
or
'cause
the
you're gonna get
Democrats
good
gonna be
odds right
ashamed out of
now.
it,
Very good.
maybe they've learned from
Yeah.
Republicans that
I
you
don't
don't have
see
to be
that
ashamed of
Yeah,
any
it's
of that.
415.
I honestly don't see it
it's
happening.
415 delegates a state in California. That's the last. So something really dramatic would have to happen, like it did tonight. I mean, we were shocked, and we hadn't really even mentioned that in Harris County, that unexpectedly that Joe Biden did very well, regardless of who you like or don't like. Facts are facts. We can say what we didn't like, what happened, but people went in those booths, and for whatever reason, they made the decision that they wanted to make. And I don't think anybody should denigrate or villainize a person making their choice for who they want. And because it's not who I want, doesn't make me think less of you because you chose someone that I don't like.
that's exactly
Actually,
what
the main
happened.
question
no.
was how in the world, what motivated people to make such a choice?
It's their.
That's what the question
He
was.
told you earlier. Their perception.
They thought
You have to
it was
walk in their
strategy.
shoes. You have to live in their household and deal
But
with
then
what
we
they
learned
deal
they're-
with.
they're low
And in
information
this
people.
election today, we found that people voted the way they wanted, without having influence from previous elections. They looked at the previous elections. They saw the people who were voting. And they said, "Those are not me. I have my own vote. I will vote my way."
Based on my lack of information, which we
No.
all determined.
I'm gonna jump
I am
in
not
here.
going. I am not going to
jump in here
insult
and
somebody's
say-
intelligence.
Some.
I have been y'all going at it has given me a chance to frantically refresh the results, which I usually am doing on nights like this. And I will say one place that Biden is not doing well at all is California right now.
Right.
Bernie is walking away with it, followed by like far behind by Bloomberg. I think it is going to be a really, really long night because I'm
So
looking
if-
at Texas results going back and forth too.
If Sanders wins California, how is that going to put him in the lead?
It depends on whether somebody gets
Quite
to
possibly,
15.
yeah. If
So
he,
when
if he
you-
continues winning, by
Bloomberg
this
right
much,
now
then
is not
yes.
going to get 15, so he would
Yeah.
get almost all of them.
So
Yeah.
this is not about winning. It's about getting the 15% and then have to divide the delegates. Once Biden reached 15%, it doesn't matter. Bernie can't walk away with 415 votes. They have to be divided proportionally. So if he wins, he may win the majority.
Biden's not going to make 15% in California.
I don't think that. Listen, remember, it's not. By the time we get there, how many candidates are going to be left? I mean, they
It
voted
looks
now.
like right
Well,
now that Bernie is going to get all of them. Nobody's going to get to 15%.
No,
No,
not
that's true, because-
impossible.
I don't
No,
Because
you
they have
can't do
congressional
that.
districts. Congressional
Well,
districts
Bloomberg-
have about 2/3 of the delegates,
Bloomberg's at
and if you get there in the
17.7
congressional
right now.
district,
Okay.
you get the
So if
delegate.
Bloomberg is 17%, he's already over the 15% margin you need to get delegates. So where's
We're not
Biden
even
at?
at 40% reporting yet.
Where's Biden at?
Let's see. Biden has one delegate so far.
He's not. He has made.
Oh, he is now at 18, so he's in a dead heat with Bloomberg.
So he
Sanders
gets vote.
is at 30%.
So he's already getting delegates.
He gets.
Okay, well, I hope we had some viewers tonight besides just Stacy.
I like
Thank you,
Stacey.
Stacy.
Thank you.
I like Stacey.
You know, the guy who still holds on to Beto.
Well,
The only one who remembers Beto.
Beto
we
O'Rourke.
did have some viewers because I've had messages coming across my
you did?
screen saying, "Why didn't they let you talk more?"
Yeah,
Hold
for
up your
real.
hand and say,
Yeah,
Cut out,
yeah.
I didn't realize
Gotta
we
get
were
in there,
interneting.
Amanda.
We're gonna talk after, right?
Yeah. You gotta get them nails in there.
I didn't really realize. I don't think of the.
Well, let's ask Houston Media Source to have us back again.
Would you
Yeah,
all like to come back? Let's
Yeah.
go
Yes.
Yeah, let's do
Raise
it
your
again.
hand if you want to come back.
All right.
Totally. I'll bring an
yeah.
air horn this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have all four people call in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.